I said, "Hey, Dad, let's go swim out to the buoy," which is something I've done all my life, swimming just out maybe 150 yards offshore to a buoy. On the way back, the sun was starting to set. I wasn't swimming on the surface of the water. I was swimming 2 or 3 feet under the water. And my sister, who was visiting a friend, went to their house with the boat. As I was swimming underwater, my sister was coming back. She was unable to see me, and she ran right over me with the boat.
I heard the noise of a boat, and just as I looked up, the boat was coming right over where Chandler was. And a few seconds later, Chandler popped up and said, "Dad, I've been hit, and I can't stay afloat."
And I felt this shot of pain from my right side, and I reached down and I felt something was wrong. My body was hurt.
I reached down to his waist and felt what was going on and realized that he was seriously injured. So much so that I didn't think he could make it back to the dock. And as I was swimming with Chandler, I thought these were probably the last few moments that I'd get to be with my son. I really felt like he was going to die in the water.
The injury was too high for a tourniquet, and so it was into my pelvis and a little bit into my abdomen, and so all they could do is just put pressure on where the blood was coming from, and they were able to get me into an ambulance and get me over to Harborview.
We knew before he got here he was losing his blood pressure, bleeding from a wound that they couldn't get to stop bleeding in the field because it was so large. And so the people that brought him in were pretty scared that they were going to lose him, and they were almost right. We had several doctors at bedside when he got here.
People like Chandler who are severely injured, it's often that they require the care of a number of different specialties. General surgery, orthopedic surgery, perhaps plastic surgery. And most of these specialties will see the patient in the emergency department.
Chandler was immediately surrounded by, I counted at one time, 22 people in the emergency room that were taking care of Chandler, and it was quite a sight.
I first met Chandler in the emergency department. By that time, he had been given some intravenous fluids by the paramedics, and they had been able to obtain a pulse and a blood pressure, although he still had a very low blood pressure, which indicated he had bled pretty significantly and was very close to death.
I was very worried that he was going to lose his leg, and so I told one of the doctors, "Can you please do what you can to save his leg?" And he took me by the shoulder and said, "Mr. Bachman, I want you to understand that Chandler's leg is gone. We can't save it, but we're going to do everything we can to save his life. He may not make it, but we're going to do everything we can."
They took me to the operation room, and they had to amputate my leg that same evening. And that night, the Harborview doctors were able to keep me alive.
Finally, they came out and said, "We'll take you back now." And, to walk in the room and see my little boy with just one leg was really emotional. And my thoughts were, how can he live this way? What's he going to do? He won't be able to run. And even to the fact of who's going to marry him? What's he going to do for a job? I mean, his whole life was just flooding through my mind as how can he survive this?
Even though Harborview is seen by the public is really being the best in the country for this, the very front end, stopping the bleeding, keeping people alive, I think a lot of people don't realize how good we are at the lifelong management of these really overwhelming injuries, amputation, spinal cord injury, head injury, blindness, just things that are really amazingly difficult issues to live with the rest of your life. How much support there are through the nursing teams, the therapy teams, the counselors, the peer programs that have been put in place to help people navigate the rest of their life and manage these issues. And Harborview does that, as good or better than anybody else.
That first time he walked down the hall on crutches, he was beaming. I could just picture him seeing, okay, I can do this. And just that little bit of mobility made a big difference. And then it was time to decide, okay, what's the next step? We need to go into rehab to help him learn how to live with this disability.
And so I was so excited to learn. I got to get out of bed. My pelvis was healed enough that I could do that. I had to learn how to use a wheelchair and how to use crutches and just, how to live life as an amputee now.
Rehabilitation is definitely a team approach. I'm just one piece of it. We have a terrific team of therapists in the outpatient clinic here. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, rehab psychology, which are instrumental in helping people navigate and deal with the complex emotions and feelings they have after an injury, such as Chandler's.
You'll hear this from everyone who talks about Chandler, but he's an incredibly mature person, and one of the things that struck me the most, and again that I had to keep reminding myself, is that this was a teenager. So this is somebody who was injured when he was 16, and yet the way that you would hear him talk, he was so mature that you would forget sometimes that he was a teenager. He was always very willing to meet with other amputees and to give people guidance. And he was more than willing to call them or to meet with them in person and talk with them and to help them, support them through their process and give them a little bit of advice and support, which was really nice.
We provide an amazing level of care, the outstanding care to everyone, no matter what their resources are, what their background is. The most affluent and the most down on their luck get the same care, the same great care. And so I think that often people don't realize, especially people in Seattle itself, sometimes don't realize what a national, international reputation Harborview has for providing this level of care.
I didn't realize that Harborview serves trauma cases, as far as Alaska, Montana, and we were so lucky to be 10 minutes away where we could take advantage of Harborview and UW Medicine and all the programs that helped save our son.
I was at a point where I was almost dead. I've thought I could never walk again and do the things I want to do. Because of the great care I had and the people I worked with, I am healthy. I can walk. I can ski because of the nurses and the doctors and the surgeons and just the ER teams. A person like myself works with so many people, and they're all a part of Harborview.
One of the things about being at Harborview is you see amazing people come through in difficult situations, and you see those people often transformed by what was a devastating injury into something that goes above and beyond.
Harborview is really an amazing place. All I can do is thank them for my life. They not only saved it, they just helped prepare me for the rest of my life. It's just an amazing program they have, and all I can do is just say thank you for it.